What's going on, collectors? Welcome into Ross Loves Cards. Today I'm going to share with you all some gifts I recently got in, and that's going to lead into me talking about my favorite, or one of my favorite players to collect. The gifts I want to start off sharing with you first is from Trevor at Blue Collar Cards. Trevor's a fairly recently new channel. I would highly recommend it. He's putting out some good content, got some good cards, and he's just a good person. I always like whatever chances I've got to talk to him, whether it's through streaming or on text. Good guy. But the first card he sent me is Rod Carew. It's actually my first Rod Carew card that I've ever had. He also sent me my first Ken Boyer I ever had, 59. And he sent me this, 1959 Topps Carl Erskine. I tell you what, Carl Erskine is one of my favorite players to collect. Sometimes I say, Carl Erskine is my favorite. Sometimes I say, well, Preacher Rowe, he's my favorite. I like them both. They're both Dodger pitchers. Preacher Rowe is from my hometown, but Carl Erskine, he loves his hometown. He was born in Anderson, Indiana, and guess what? Anderson, Indiana's where he died. So those two are my favorite players to collect, and depends on which day you ask me who's my favorite. But I got another gift. This one's from Jayhawker Mike, as I like to call him, or Mike from Jayhawker Vintage Cards. When I met him at the show last week, he'd bought this for me. A signed picture of Ralph Branca, Carl Erskine, and Preacher Rowe. All on one picture. I tell you what, this is one of the coolest things I've got. One of the coolest things I've seen. At least for me. If, like I said, two favorite players to collect. It's not even like there's I've got a number 1 and a number 4. No, this is 1 and 2, and they're interchangeable. Maybe I ought to get into Ralph Branca and make him my third favorite. But I absolutely love this. Trevor, thank you for the cards. Mike, thank you for this. I know I've already said thanks, but, the more I look at it, the more I like it. It will eventually belong somewhere right in here. After I get me a frame, you should probably start seeing it in the videos. You can look at it. I mean, another cool thing, blue's my favorite color, so yeah, love this. Thanks, Mike. Talking about Carl Erskine being from Anderson, Indiana, I Googled one time of Christian baseball players, and this is actually how I found out about Carl Erskine originally. And it pulled up a couple or a few, and one of them was Christy Mathewson. Another one at the top was Carl Erskine. Something like about Carl Erskine, you could read in his obituary that he was a member of the same church for 70 years. 70 years is a long time for somebody to stay at the same church. He's a man of commitment. I think him and his wife was married something like 75 years. Man was faithful to his church, to his wife, to his family, and to his community. I found, it's been maybe 5-6 months ago, I found a slabbed return check, or cash check, however you say that, of Carl Erskine. It was made out to his church. It's on him and his wife's account. Their address in Anderson. And something else neat about this. This bank is actually the bank that he became president of. After baseball, toward the end of baseball, they had a son that had Down syndrome. And Carl came back, and they wanted to live in Anderson. That's where they thought they could make the best home for the family. Back then, it was common for many people to have their kids institutionalized. But they wasn't going to do that. They stayed and were moved to Anderson, Indiana, and I believe he became an insurance salesman. And then he got into banking. Like I said, later on, he'd become president of that bank. Carl Erskine is, a faithful man, a man dedicated to his hometown. I've done a hometown collection. I look back, my family's history, we've always stayed pretty close to here. My grandpa, he was born, like 30 miles from West Plains, but he lived in West Plains his whole life after they moved to town when he was like 5, and he's buried here. My dad was born here in West Plains, Missouri. I'm guessing he's probably going to kick the bucket in West Plains, Missouri. And Lord willing, I'm probably a dying old man, or hope to, here in West Plains, Missouri. I have a soft spot for my hometown, and I think Carl Erskine, he did as well. I want to show you some other cards I've got of Carl. I've showed this before. Here's another Erskine signature. If you look at that, I've got 3 signatures in one video. But that was from Eddie Cardboard Chaos. I'd done a video over that. And this I got from Tony's Talks Cards. And this Erskine right here, I can't remember if it's a 2022 or 2023, 1952, Topps Chrome. It's a Topps Chrome of the 1952 layout. You know what I'm saying. I've also got a Preacher Row just like this. I guess I need to work on getting the actual 52s, but that's going to be a placeholder until then. Let me see what else I got here to show. Some other cards. This is a 1959 Topps Carl Erskine. I've showed this before. I absolutely love this card. How this card got a 4, I do not know. That thing is dead centered. Color looks awesome on that. It's got one honest corner on it, or dinged corner. But seriously, other than that, the back's good as the front is on this thing. But anyways, this isn't a grading video, but that's just an awesome card. This one, I've got a 4 that looks about like a 2, so maybe it averages out. No. But this is his 55 Bowman. The TV card, as my boy calls them. Also, I've picked this up recently. A 1954 Carl Erskine Red Heart. This right now is my first Red Heart. But hopefully it won't be my last, because I sure do like them. See how centered that thing is? Left or right anyways. But another card. I know we keep talking about grading. This is an old slab. This is a PSA 2. That card is centered as can be. I think the registration's great on that. The corners are good on that. Just an awesome card. That makes me just want to get into the 53s even more. But then I'll show his rookie card. 1951 Bowman, Carl Erskine. 1951 Bowman's my favorite set. And I tell you what, I love this card. This is the first big boy card for me. It's the biggest card. First card I ever bought over $100. I think after it's all said and done, I paid like $150 for that. And I tell you what, I love it. I've bought some nicer cards since then, but you know, buying your favorite player or one of your favorite players, as I about dropped it, rookie card, there's something special about that, or it was for me. What also I liked about that, this was his first playing days card, and this is his last. Both in pink. You know, one's in Brooklyn, one's in LA, but I think, you know, it's just kind of perfect bookends, if you will. Carl Erskine won a World Series, 1955. He had 2 no-hitters, and for one point in time, he also held the record for the most strikeouts in a World Series. He had 14 strikeouts in a World Series game. That remained the record for 10 years. And I believe it was Sandy Koufax, a former teammate of his, broke his record. One thing I like about Carl Erskine, you can watch his old interviews. Well, I mean, some of the interviews ain't that old. He didn't pass away until here just recently. But you can watch his old interviews, and the man's just humble. You know, he's never bragging on himself. You know, always seems to be happy when he's talking. Another thing I like about him, you hear people talk about him. You listen to interviews. I've read books. I've listened to other people talk, other YouTube channels. Never hear one bad word about him. In Indiana, I know him and his wife, they was big promoters of Special Olympics when that started up. So much I can't remember. They named something because of that. But anyways, they was big promoters of the Special Olympics. But just the type of man that he was. He's dedicated to his church. And he's dedicated to his family. And he is a man, you know, that I would aspire to be like. And I think other people should as well, to look at his life and how he lived it. So that's probably the reason, well, that is the reason he is one of the two of my favorite players to collect. I hope you all learned something from this, maybe seen a card or two that you liked. I do want to thank Mike and Trevor once again for those gifts. I want to thank you all for tuning in and hope to have you listen in to the next one. Thanks.